You, President Sherm. I have an in with the program chairman, so he made sure that I got a good slot on this program. And George, let me just say that if you're not satisfied with the quality of this program, I hope you don't reconsider your decision to join our club.
Not to interrupt, let me keep this aside for you.
Sure, that'd be great. Okay, well, you probably know that congressional approval is somewhere around 9% right now, and I saw that the president's job approval was down in the low 40s. We have the mayor of Toronto on doing crack cocaine. We have representatives sending pictures through the internet inappropriately. So, but I think in order to try to get us through these times, it always helps to have a sense of humor. And I thought, well, this would be a good time to go over some of the witty politicians that have been in history. I think when I think about a witty politician, I think I begin and end with Winston Churchill, who I'm a great admirer of him. So I thought that's the way we will begin and end. I did read this book about a year ago, The Definitive Wit of Winston Churchill, and I'm using this as a reference for the program. We're going to finish with that. And of course, there's a lot of information available on the internet, and some of it. Winston Churchill is he's really a classic, and why don't we? The first comment I would have is this would be under the category of damning by faint praise. You know, one of his political adversaries was Clement Attlee, who was he succeeded Winston Churchill as prime minister. And Attlee was in the Labour Party, and they were frequent adversaries. And in describing Attlee, Winston said, "He is a modest man who has a great deal to be modest about." Now, I have to give some apologies to our female Rotarians and guests here. But once when Winston was traveling in the United States, he was in Washington visiting, and there was a well-endowed woman who would come up to him, and she had got up at dawn, and she drove 100 miles to attend the unveiling of Winston Churchill's bust in Virginia, and Winston replied, "Madame, I want you to know that I would be happy to reciprocate the honor." And the next comment is not so much, I can't say it's witty, but it's I would view it as profound. And it's very popular, and we've heard this many times. I'm sure this will sound familiar to you, but it's one of my favorites. "Democracy is the worst form of government, except all those others that have been tried from time to time." And that is definitely true. Once, when Winston was campaigning, he was told by a voter they would rather vote for the devil than him. And Winston replied, "But in case your friend is not running, can I count on your support?" And this is also not so much a real laugher, but it's also very profound. Also one of my favorites. "The inherent vice of capitalism is the unequal sharings of blessing. The inherent virtue of socialism is the equal sharing of miseries." And there's something very true about that. Now, for whatever you feel about our current president, he certainly has a good sense of humor, and he's been criticized for blaming a lot of the problems on his predecessor. So at one of the White House Correspondents' dinners, he said, "Now some have said I blame too many problems on my predecessor, but let's not forget, that's a practice that was initiated by George W. Bush." And we have to say that our president has a kind of an oversized ego. I guess if you're going to run for president, you have to have a big ego, and he would certainly qualify. He said that but he did have an interesting observation. He said, and I got my middle name from somebody who obviously didn't think I'd ever run for president. If I had to name my greatest strength, I guess it would be my humility. Greatest weakness, it's possible that I'm just a little too awesome. Now, when you think about Abraham Lincoln, you don't think about someone that's naturally witty. But just looking at his quotes, there was one that stuck out, and you may have heard this before. And this is advice that I should probably give myself from time to time. Better to remain silent and be thought a fool than to speak out and remove all doubt. And what was Gandhi's saying? Only speak when you can improve the silence. I think that's probably
what?
Only speak when you can improve the silence. So I think that's advice we can all use. Let's see. President Clinton, he had a good sense of humor. He said, being president is like running a cemetery. You've got a lot of people under you and nobody's listening. I think that's dangerous territory for President Clinton to talk about people under you. Let's see. All right. Now, as most of you know, I'm a great admirer of President Reagan, and he had a reputation for some, he was certainly by almost any standard a very effective president, but he didn't have a reputation of extraordinarily hard worker. So
Always woke at the crack of doom.
Yeah, one of his comments was, it's true, hard work never killed anybody, but I figure, why take the chance? and he always had some great self-deprecating humor. He said, I have left orders to be awakened at any time in case of national emergency, even if I'm in a cabinet meeting. To think about that. And this was clever. Politics is supposed to be the second oldest profession. I have come to realize that it bears a very close resemblance to the first. We have ample evidence of that. And he always used to. He was up there when he was inaugurated president. He was about 69 or 70 first time. He said, Thomas Jefferson once said, we should never judge a president by his age, only by his words. And ever since he told me that, I stopped worrying. Now, if we reference the, now this book, this was written by Richard Langworth, and he was deputy co-chairman of the board of trustees of the Churchill Center, and he has some interesting comments here. Some of them I'm sure you've heard. This is a classic, and it's not 100%. There's some controversy as to whether this is an exact quote from Churchill, but they asked him how he enjoyed the dinner party, and he's quoted as saying, well, dinner would have been splendid if the wine had been as cold as the soup, the beef as rare as the service, the brandy as old as the fish, and the maid as willing as the Duchess. Now, let's see. Also, this is a observation Winston Churchill on birth. Although present on that occasion, I have no clear recollection of the events leading up to it. We all probably say that. Now this one, you could argue is a little off color, so apologies in advance. But this one was also quoted by, was retold by President Reagan. Now Churchill, Churchill was at a urinal, and which is nothing like a urinal joke at lunchtime, but he saw his political adversary, Attlee, approach him at the House of Commons urinal, and Sir Winston shuffled away a little bit. So Attlee said, "A bit standoffish today, are we, Winston?" And Churchill responded, "Every time you socialists see something big, privately owned, and working well, you want to nationalize it."
Good to know we didn't have any prostate trouble with it.
Now this one, I actually, at Rick's roast, somehow I worked this into Rick's roast. I can't quite figure out why, but this is classic Churchill humor. If anybody goes to, you go to the Cape May Lighthouse, and they have these towers, like Martello towers, because the German U-boats operated off the coast and sunk a lot of ships off of the Jersey coast, all the way from Greenland all the way down to Brazil. So the British military was meeting, and they were talking about the Virgin Islands, and one of the naval officers said, "I'm afraid I don't know where the Virgin Islands are. You, Prime Minister?" And Churchill responded, "Not exactly, but I trust they lie a respectable distance from the Isle of Man." Now, and this is also classic Churchill. This, on his 75th birthday, a photographer came in for a formal photograph, and the photographer, being polite, said, "I hope, sir, that I will shoot your picture on your 100th birthday." And Winston replied, "I don't see why not, young man. You look reasonably fit and healthy." And also, now, let's see, this is a classic from one of the great authors, George Bernard Shaw, who Winston Churchill and George Bernard Shaw used to trade quips back and forth, and always used to be digging each other. So there was a premiere of one of George Bernard Shaw's play. So he sent a telegram to Winston Churchill. It said, "I am reserving 2 tickets for you for my premiere. Come and bring a friend if you have one."